Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is December 8th, 2025. Glad you all could make it for today's update. Whoops. Got a few things on tap. First, let's go ahead and get right into our space weather. Our solar wind speed's coming in at 337.4 kilometers per second with a density of 0.13, very light. Our smooth sunspot number is 133. And the last time we were on the air back in June was at 83. So we have seen some action over the past few months. Actually, we had a peak of 221 on the sunspot numbers just last week. What's causing the influx up and down? Let's just say this is the sun's maximum cycle fighting for its last breath. It's given out signals that it's still active, but as you can see right here, the sunspots in the facula that are appearing on our star are becoming more and more minimal. This is not uncommon to see a spike in solar activity when we are witnessing the declination of solar cycle 25. But we are fast approaching that minimum. Our KP indices right now are sitting at a 0. And our 24-hour max is a 0.67. So very, very low KP today. And that explains a lot. We had a 7.6 magnitude earthquake in Japan today. We'll get into that here just a bit. Cosmic radiation dosage rates are sitting at a negative 10.1%. Now, the closer to 0% dosage rates, and over, that's where you know we are in a huge flux of cosmic radiation. Well, right now, only negative 10%. That's a little bit lower than usual, as we have been seeing numbers in the 6.4 to 8.1% negative. So a little lower than usual right now as far as cosmic radiation dosage rates. In fact, the 48-hour change is up 0.4% over the last 48 hours. Today, there is a 15% chance of X-class flares. In fact, we're going to report on one here just in a minute. And our TSI, this is something interesting I wanted to talk about before we get into everything that we have today for coverage. The TSI, the last broadcast, we were at a 1362.8 watts per square meter. Right now, as it sits, our TSI has dropped to 1361 even. Now, what is impressive about this is that in a short period of time, since June, we've seen almost 2 watts per square meter drop in TSI in just the last 5 months. That's significant when it comes to the sun. TSI goes up and down, back and forth a lot. In fact, let's go ahead and take a look real quick. All right, let's go on over here to the actual numbers here. We'll take a look at the last 3 months, which is the easier chart to read. But as you can see, TSI numbers have been pretty steady over the recent weeks, recent months. If I could find what I'm looking for here, we'll be in good shape. Wanted to point out a couple things. Well, as we can see, there has been a pretty sizable drop in TSI just in the recent weeks, recent days, since the end of November till now. I don't know if you can see it, and if you can't, I will get something up to show you. That definitely wasn't it. Well then. So as we can see though, the drop, if you go back till, and I know this might be a little hard to see on our little screen. Let's see if I can zoom it in. I'm just going to zoom it in real quick on the area that I want to focus on. If there is, yeah. This drop right here is what I wanted to look at, guys. At the very tail end, we can see at the end of November that TSI really plummeted. I mean, look at where the peak was here. What is that? That was a 13,625. So we see this massive drop, and if I had to estimate, this would have been at the end of November to the current date. I mean, we've seen drops like this before, but this one was pretty quick. Didn't waste any time. Actually, I wanted to take a look at our other version of this, which is a little bit broader scale, a bigger picture of what our TSIs look like through solar cycle 25. Let's go ahead and check that graph out. Yeah. So as you can see, we've had drops below 1361 before. And I'm not trying to, but it is very far and few in between watching it drop that much. Now this one does not look updated just yet. Or actually this stops in January of 25. Oh wait, I'm sorry. This is by the month. The little hashes are the months. So this is December. This is where we are. I don't think it's been updated though from the current. No, it's not. But as you can see, as I zoom out, this is also a signature that the peak is passed and that we're still on the edge and falling off here for solar cycle 25. So this maximum is coming to its conclusion, definitely. But if that's the case, then what's up with all the solar flares, right? Another high solar activity continued on the sun this morning, an X1 class flare from Sunspot 4298. Although the explosion was intense, it was also very brief, too brief to lift a significant CME out from the sun's atmosphere. So this does not have anything to do with the CME that's already en route, the strong M-class flare that was let off the other day. That one is predicted to be here around December 9th. Possibly a geomagnetic storm, of a weak one at that point. Some beautiful pictures there, but check this out. What part of the sun did this strike us? Well, here's where the cluster is right now. So again, I'll zoom that in. As we can see, the cluster of sunspots that are over here to the right of your screen, that was what caused the spike of 221 I was referring to last week. And at this time, we're seeing it at 133. Now, once this group of sunspots leaves the area, you can see on the other side, or the other half of the sun, we're looking at only one sunspot region. That's 4303, and then after that, Well, let's take a quick look. We have that ability. Good old grandsolarminimum.com. TheGrandSolarMinimum.com. I don't think we have a lot to look at here, honestly, when it comes past the eastern limb. All the action is in Earth facing right now, and then going to the western limb of our star. But I don't, at this point, I don't see it. And a lot of times we'd still see some bright facula on the western limb if indeed we were getting ready to see some brighter sunspot activity. Here's our chart progress of solar cycle 25. Remember, we talked about Valentina Zarkova and her predictions of a sharp drop, and we see that here. We see that here on this chart. You can tell where the white line, we're looking at the white line here, not the other colored ones. But a couple of times we see it dip back down and go up just slightly. But at this point, this trajectory, it is, the solar cycle is now becoming weaker than originally predicted. The orange represents the 75th percentile, and the dark purple one, or the actual one that's happening right now, is the standard curves method. And I would believe that we're following that lower end of this graph, the trend of this. So 25 did have a period of peak activity that was longer than what we saw in 24. And there's no denying that. But as you zoom back out, if you look at solar cycle 23 right behind 24, you could see the peak was much stronger than what we saw here in 25. And a similar decline as well, a very steep decline, which we are looking at right now with this solar cycle, again, like Zarkova had predicted. But I find it interesting, too, that there was a lot of speculation that this solar cycle was strong enough to end what was considered the oncoming of grand solar minimum, which right now it has not done that. In fact, we're seeing the lower temperatures, or I'm sorry, the lower solar activity, and I do believe alongside with polar vortex, stratospheric warming events, the low solar activity, or the space weather that has entered Earth from these CMEs, have played a role here in the recent weeks of this cold. And we'll get into that here in just a minute. Our first climate-related topic, I wanted to show you that there is a drop in November's temperatures, thanks to Mr. Roy Spencer, Dr. Roy Spencer. They dropped from 0.53 to down to a 0.43. Now, this is still considered pretty high, considering the fact that we were seeing such a strong indication that we were going to drop below where we were just 2 years ago. But I believe, and others as well in the community, that the Tonga eruption back in 2022 has aided the warming, and that's why you see such a huge spike. Imagine all the water vapor that was spewed from this underwater volcano into the atmosphere, and it went up really high, over 60,000 kilometers. Some reported it was going as high as 73. Actually, I take that back. This one did peak out at over 122,000 feet. That's a huge ash plume that carried all that moisture, water vapor, and droplets into the atmosphere. It's not used to having that much moisture. And I really believe that Tonga had a lot to do with that spike in global temperatures. I'm not saying we're running out of moisture from that eruption. But as time goes on and is continuing to wind down from that, we are seeing lower and lower amounts of water vapor from that particular volcanic eruption. It is starting to thin out, but still a lot of vapor left from that. But a lot of different things going on right now. First, let's talk about the earthquake that I'd mentioned at the beginning of the show. See, this just happened here not too long ago. According to the Pacific Tsunami Warning, there has been hazardous waves are possible from this up to 620 miles away from the epicenter. And the threat includes the coastal areas of Japan, Russia. Lots of commercials here. Good for you, watchers. Holy God, look at all these commercials. So yeah, 7.6 struck today at 14:15 UTC time. 31 miles is the depth of this earthquake. And like I said, there was an alert put out for a tsunami, but that has not came to fruition yet. KP indices at 0 and the 24 hours at 0.67. Those are very, very low. And usually when you have low KP like that, that makes things even more favorable for seismic activity. And that is just one effect of the sun on our planet. Here's that explosive 1.1 solar flare that we talked about on spaceweather.com. Again, this is not going to be a mighty blow from the sun as far as the CME is concerned. We have one that's scheduled to be here on the 9th. This will not impact that impact at all. It won't impact what's going to happen here with the CME that's coming from the M solar flare, the 8.1. This says a 1.8, but I think it was a M8.1. That'll be here tomorrow, Tuesday sometime. Not sure how strong the solar activity will be as far as for auroras. Well, those are pretty big sunspots, though. This is a couple days old, this image here. These sunspot regions are now moving away from Earth facing. But 4296, 4294, those are monsters. Those are behemoths. Very rare to see at this point of the cycle. But this also could be an indication that the cycle is finally petering out, given its final heave-ho. And start the beginning of this minimum that is already showing signs of some low solar activity on the horizon. But not just that, but it's already impacting our climate. The polar jet stream is out of control right now. Interstellar comet 3I Atlas reveals signs of metal, carbon, and possible cryovolcanism. And I wanted to briefly talk about this because I saw that as they're getting a better image of this comet / whatever, they are seeing things that they didn't see in the beginning, and possible that it might have volcanoes that's erupting ice right now as it is traveling through our solar system. Now we are approaching the crossing of this. The closest point for Earth is going to be sometime in end of December. Not clear on how good of a view we're going to have. But this thing has been talked about for a long time. And July 1st was when they first found it. And we haven't been on the air to have our thoughts about this. But it's hard to say when you read all over about the odd structure and how things got bright. But I always say, yeah, because it got closer. That's why it got brighter. I'm always going to try to be objective and try to debunk things like this. But there's just a lot of weird behaviors. I'm going to continue to just monitor it as it is, as a comet. NASA is pretty quiet about it. They did have a press release about this not too long ago. And it was interesting. It was as if this was a total debunking opportunity to get people's minds off of the possibility that this is from possible alien technology. Now, we only have one person out there that's saying that, and it's funny how everybody likes to just hang on to that one person's opinion, the rest of the world saying no. Kind of reminds you of how things were when we first started when it came to the belief in climate cycles and the sun's impact. This feels very familiar to that. A lot of people were against that theory, and now there is more and more evidence and more people who are starting to get on board with the idea of solar forcing climate change. And there's a lot of proof out there to show it. Speaking of climate, it is very cold. Polar vortex shift poised to unleash more bitter cold across the U.S. through mid-December. And I think they're being kind right now to just say mid-December. A lot of folks believe that this is going to be an ongoing thing for this particular winter. And a lot of it is because of how bad things have gotten for the polar vortex. I've heard people using terms such as broken. Very, very, very cold Arctic air is spilling into the U.S. as we speak, Canada and the lower 48, and it's predicted to get worse by the end of this week coming up, possibly next week. Well, good news, it's going to pretty much guarantee areas that you're looking at right now for White Christmas. If you have snow on the ground, there's a good chance that it's going to be on the ground, and there's plenty of clipper systems to come. But this polar vortex, it's already weak to begin with, and then we had a rare and unprecedented stratospheric warming event that took place at the end of November that kind of started this whole, winter talk was back in mid-November about how this polar vortex is going to be here by the 1st of December and that we were going to see another blast of cold air, possibly 3 rounds of polar vortex shooting cold air from the Arctic here into the United States. As far down south as Tennessee, probably northern tips of Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi. But we have seen some pretty cold air from this, and we are starting to see it again, especially here in the Northeast, where temperatures are beginning to drop a little bit. Let's just take a quick look at this latest model here from Tropical Tidbits. This is a GFS model. Lots of clipper systems affecting the Great Lakes into New York, into the Northeast. There's another one that is by Wednesday. This is going to bring a light dusting here in the New York area. The capital region should see about 1 to 3 from this. The majority of the region will see that. More snow coming in from the Alberta region. That's why they call these Alberta Clippers. But here's round 3. And again, these are all light snowstorms. There's nothing major at this point. And this is all the way down to Monday of next week. This is where you usually stop and say, okay, reasonable. The weather I just saw here for the last 7 days is reasonably going to happen. Sometimes GFS does signal what the pattern is going to be in the upcoming future. According to this, it's going to be quiet. Still lots of high pressure system hanging out over the northeast part of the United States. According to this model, we are looking at the colder temperatures staying bottled up in the northern part of the United States and the northeast. But things will change again as we get into mid-December. We see what looks to be another indication of colder air pushing its way back across the Ohio Valley. This is right before Christmas. A quick little clipper system right before Christmas on the 22nd. This storm could have the potential to form into a nor'easter, and then another storm system behind that one. By the 23rd, it starts off as rain, ends as snow. So we'll keep our eyes on that. And that's for the Northeast, Michigan, Pennsylvania, parts of northern Ohio. But these tight bars shows you that it's going to be quite windy with this storm system as well. It looks pretty strong. But again, this is Christmas, and it looks like temperatures are going to be cold enough to support white Christmases if we do see snow in these affected areas. Let's look at the temperatures first, and then we'll go check out the snow totals. So here's right now, mainly the Northeast is in control of all the cold air right now, as we see a nice little warming trend, and I mean warming 30s and 40s at this point after what we've experienced in the Midwest. That is warm. But here we are on December 10th, which is Wednesday. So we talk about that first clipper system moving across the Northeast. Temperatures do support the snow, all snow, and then more frigid air begins to creep in across the United States, making its way in from the Alberta region. Once again, just like those clippers, you can clearly see the line of where the cold and where the warmer air meets. And as we get down to Monday of next week, you're looking at a pretty deep dive here of cold air. Lows or highs in 26 degrees in Mississippi. More Arctic air invading the Northeast, mainly staying in the northern plains, Michigan, and the Northeast. Moving through the week of the 15th, most of the Arctic air is going to be bottled up in the Northeast. And then there's going to be a lot more on the way as we approach Christmas. According to the models, we are seeing a much broader region of very cold Arctic air making its way in here by the time we get to Christmas. So whatever pipe dreams that were being fed about a warm up around Christmas, just remember the rigid fridge. Here it is. Those are negative 20s, folks, across North Dakota, Minnesota, Montana. Moving this forward to Christmas Eve, and this cold is poised to strike the Northeast and the Midwest by Christmas. It looks like the coldest of that is going to be in the northern plains and across the northern states of Montana, North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and of course, Michigan. I mean, it looks to be blasted by Christmas Day. So the cold isn't going anywhere, and it's at least probably about a month early than what we usually see cold air like this. This is dead of the cold winter stuff here, not the very beginning. I mean, technically, it's still fall. December 21st is the first day of winter. Now, let's take a look at snow totals. Here is Monday. Not much going on in the mid-Atlantic states, getting some low snow there. Across the northern plains, you start to get some accumulating snow. Across Wednesday, could see over a foot in isolated areas, but look at that snow swath going across parts of Michigan, lower Michigan, Erie, PA, lake effect snow, parts of western New York and central New York, Syracuse region, Utica, possibly near the capital region as well, could have almost 8 to 10 inches of snow. As we move this snow accumulation map towards the middle of the end of the week next week, I should say. This map indicates that we should see over a foot of snow in most areas of New York, western New York, and across the Adirondacks. And I don't like to go past the weekend, so I'm going to stop it right around Monday of next week. And as you can see, by the time we get to Wednesday of next week, a lot of the area in the northern parts of the United States will have at least 3 inches of snow on the ground. Again, if temperatures maintain, then what's on the ground at this point will be here at Christmas. But look at the heavy snow that starts to build up. The models really seem to think that the Montana is going to get annihilated, and more snow to the northeast. It even shows us here in the region I live in over 20 inches of snow. So the northern parts, and this is not a true accurate forecast, this is just an idea of where we're expecting this Arctic cold, the higher snow amounts. So the only thing that could change this forecast, and I hope so, because I really don't like digging out of this kind of snow. This is a lot of snow over the course of time before Christmas, almost 2 feet. We just had 6 inches not too long ago. So the only hope is And I know this sounds nuts, but the air is colder than what they are predicting already to be. And with that higher pressure, that colder air, that's also going to choke out any kind of moisture as well. So that is the small hope, is if it's colder than what is already predicted. If it's warmer than what it's predicted, say closer in the upper 20s, low 30s, and we're getting this moisture, then these snow totals could creep up another 8 to 12 inches in the Northeast, in the parts of the Midwest, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Montana. But at this moment right now, let's just let's get past next week before we start dreaming about what's ahead in 15 days. Want to say hello to some folks out there. Matt, good to see you out there, my friend. Stay warm out there in frosty Nebraska. Helen, good to have you out there. Knife Collector, nice to see you as well. It's been a long time, guys. Long time. Too long. Let's see who else is out there. Double A, don't know you, but welcome aboard. Robert, hello. Good to see you as well. Danny, welcome to the channel. Thank you for the comments. And so on and so on. Jerome, good to have you. I see some familiar faces out here and some new ones too, so that's good. Kirkford, Riverstorm, you guys are new. Welcome to the Grand Solar Minimum channel, and many, many other folks as well. Now, before we let you go, here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel, we are kindly asking if to enjoy the content that you see as of what we reported today. Please give us some love. Join our Patreon channel, which is only for $1, or just make a simple donation to the Super Chat here on the YouTube page as well. But anything helps, and the more that this channel can raise, the more awareness we can spread, the better produced shows we can get, and it just helps keep things flowing on a consistent basis. That's part of the reason why we're so spotty. But if we can get those appreciation donations, even as low as $1 a month on our Patreon channel, we'll figure out packages and everything like that. There's a lot of things that are to come here in the future, but it really does depend on folks like you to give us a hand and make sure that content continues to flow on a normal and consistent basis. All right, had to pay the bills there, but nonetheless, we do appreciate your support. It's surprising to see how many subs we still have. Very little have left, even though we have long breaks at some times. But I can tell you right now, there is some time freed up, and the Grand Solar Minimum channel, it's time to get things going again. So, with that being said, we hope to see you tomorrow on our next live broadcast. Until then, stay safe out there, and we will talk soon. Take care, everybody. Tomorrow.